Hello everyone, it's Richard Lewis here again with another video. Today, going to be talking about a topic that comes up all the time on By the Numbers, but rarely do any kind of individual videos on it, and that's talking about the founder and owner of the new Astralis, Nicola Nyholm, and his constant desire to kind of be in control of the entire CSGO scene in one form or another. Now, if you don't know the history of this guy, this is a Danish venture capitalist who's been very successful in some, tech, in the tech world with some apps and stuff like that. And he started investing in esports, was a part of, the Blast, and before he extricated himself from that, obviously Astralis. But one of the things he did initially was, when he found a refresh, was he wanted to control multiple teams. In fact, that was the kind of thing that brought him into the consciousness of the Counterstrike community, was that he was in control of multiple teams, essentially denied it, and then through reporting that I did, and I think other journalists did, as well as the obtaining of publicly available documentation, it showed that he did actually have a controlling interest in multiple teams, and he had to withdraw from that for conflict of interest reasons. The same with the Blast and Astralis, because obviously if you own a team and you own a tournament and they're competing, all sorts of fuckery can go on there. But what you also got to remember about Nicola Nyholm, before he did that, right, his plan was to have a league where only his teams competed within it, kind of like a franchise league. That's what the Blast was sort of born from, that idea, that project. And before that, he was contacting top high-level players saying, hey, I want to make a union. I'll need you on board if we're going to do this. And clearly this is a guy that just wants control. Like a lot of people in the space, they want to control a bigger slice of the pie as possible. And this guy has now graduated, I would say, to realizing that all the power really lies with the developers. You can have teams, you can run tournaments, a developer can come in tomorrow and just say, like, you can't use our game, go fuck yourself, and that's it. Now, I call that the tyranny of the developer. It's an ongoing problem in esports and something we're going to need multiple legal actions to resolve. But let's take a look at what Nicola Nyholm's decided to do. It turns out that, according to reports from win.gg, he was thinking about making his own game, and he had a company called Scattershot Limited, which was created with the guy behind the original Counterstrike, Min Lee, who I'm sure most of you guys will know. And yeah, this was the plan here. They were going to make a company called Scattershot together, and it was going to be most likely a games development company, although impossible to say one way or the other, because there weren't a lot of details about it. There was just this UK registration file for it. And you can see they asked the question, is Astralis working with Counter-Strike's Min Lee on a CSGO competitor? Now, obviously, Min Lee has been working on other projects. You don't come up with something as amazing as the Counter-Strike format and then disappear. This is obviously a very intelligent guy with a lot of ideas. He's been working on a game called Plan 8, over at a studio called Pearl Abyss, but it looked like he was maybe going to break away from that to work on this, unknown project with Nicola Nyholm, which we can safely assume was probably going to be a game. Now, I can say probably, because what actually ended up happening was Win.gg dug more into it, and yes, the plan was to create a Counter-Strike competitor, a direct competitor to the game, but Min Lee decided that he was going to withdraw from the project because they're just, I'm guessing there wasn't time with the crunch for him to do on Plan 8, or maybe he didn't want to be involved in Scattershot anymore. But the Scattershot project, as far as we can tell, is still an existing entity. That could even be the name of the eventual game, we don't know, but Nicola Nyholm's clearly got it in his mind that what he wants to do is create a game. And a competitor to the game he's enjoyed the largest amount of success in. Now, what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that this guy still has designs on dominating the space. It's not enough that he had his own tournament company. It's not enough that he's got the #1 team. It's not enough that he leveraged the world's #1 team to fuck over competitors by saying they can't go compete at those tournaments, but they have to compete at these ones that I have a controlling interest in. It's just never going to be enough for this guy. And obviously, if you want to hold all the cards, you make a game. Now, the timing of this is absurd because, as we know, Counterstrike in general isn't having a great time globally. While all the viewership and numbers are up massively in Europe, while people are still investing in top teams and top players in Europe, in North America, there's been kind of a consensus that because all the top-tier tournaments take place in Europe and we can't travel because of COVID-19 and the pandemic, they're actually moving away from Counter-Strike. It's only the top teams that are going to keep their teams, and they're actually moving to Europe into compounds and places where they can practice. So a lot of North American organizations are withdrawing and going all in on Valorant because there's no end in sight of the measures that we're having to put in place for the pandemic. Now, making a competitor Counter-Strike in that sort of landscape, when Valorant is about to sort of take over an entire continent, as far as I can tell, seems completely ridiculous, doesn't it? And this is Nicola Nyholm in a nutshell. It's like he's a guy abrim with ideas about how he can further his own control over esports, but never really understands kind of the minutiae and all of the moving parts. Like, his projects have been pretty hit and miss, if we're just being honest about it, and the success of Astralis is neither here nor there when you look at all the problems that they're having, and it's uncertain as to whether or not they're going to be able to retain the golden 5, players that they had that achieved so much. That's all up in the air if you look at recent news reports. So I think the timing's definitely off, but it looks like something you might go ahead and try anyway. Obviously, as I said, we only have the filing documents. We only have WinGG's reporting about this. But I thought it was interesting because it was a story that kind of flew under the radar, and I thought it would be of great interest to the community because obviously, what's the end goal? What's the end goal if you're making a game? What's the end goal if you own the greatest team in the world, one of the biggest brands in the world? Well, obviously these things can align, and I would probably suggest that if he makes his own game, what better way to promote that game if it's a direct competitor to Counter-Strike than immediately having, these great players move across and publicly endorse it. I don't know if you could actually make them do that, but they are under contract, so certainly you would have them go and compete at your tournaments, right? It makes absolute sense. So very strange. Just another weird story coming out of the Nicola Nyholm world, the Nicola Nyholm mythology. We don't know if it's going to go ahead now, but the project is still registered. The documentation is still there. And I guess we'll have to wait and see what he wants to do. But just watch this space, because this guy, he's like a bad smell, He's going to hang around and not go anywhere. And now it's clear that he wants to create not just a scene he can dominate through investment, through owning teams, but actually a scene from the ground up that he can control entirely as some sort of god emperor of his own video game. So there you have it. Anyway, just a quick one today. I thought you guys would be interested in that. Make sure if you want to get more reports about everything that's going on in esports, you follow all of this stuff, all of this gubbins. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Nicola Nyholm's quest for world domination and whether or not a new FPS could even fit into the current landscape. Stick a thumbs up, whatever, and I'll see you on the next video. Until then, take care.